Hello and welcome to the Spinning Barn. If this is your first visit, you are very, very welcome. And if you have visited before, then welcome back, of course. Now, today I'm sitting here surrounded by gorgeous, lovely, fluffy wool, as usual. No change there, is it? And I thought it would be the ideal opportunity today to have a look at combing wool. Now, the fleece that I've got here is actually a border Leicester, and parts of the fleece have quite a long staple. Other parts of it are actually on the short side, so it's in some respects quite a useful fleece actually, because it's giving me lots of options, isn't it? The longer staples I can use for a worsted yarn, and the shorter staples I can use for long draw woolen yarn. So lots of possibilities out of a big fleece, which I think is rather nice. But let's have a think about, first of all, the purpose of actually combing and what we use and things that we need to consider. First thing I really want to draw your attention to is some bit of health and safety. Now, as you can see here, I've got quite a range of tools. These little handheld wool combs, they're small, but they're mighty. You can see they've actually got these have got 2 rows of very pointed, very sharp tines that obviously can cause some damage. I've also got here a pair of English wool combs with 5 rows of very dangerous, very sharp teeth. You can see straight away how these can be lethal instruments. So what I have to suggest is always work in sufficient space. You need space to work. You also need time to do this. Please don't do this as when you're rushing. Please allocate time to do this as well, so that you can concentrate and give it the attention that it needs. Don't wear flappy clothes, okay? That sounds silly, but we don't want to get anything that's caught. We don't want anything to get caught up in those times. That's one of the reasons actually that I wear my apron. It's tied to my body. It keeps any clothing still underneath. As you can see, been to the hairdresser this morning, so I don't have long hair. Never have had, but I don't have long hair. Long hair really, really must be tied up and kept safely out of the way. If you have any little people or any other vulnerable people, please don't do this in their vicinity. And the same with pets. Now, I don't know if you can see, where's Ted? Ted is probably behind me asleep on the mat, which is where Ted always is. Those of you who know Ted know that he's always fast asleep. Bobby, little schnauzer, is actually in the other part of the room and he's asleep on the sofa. Okay, so I think everybody's safe for now. Okay, so let's think about first of all why we would actually choose to comb our wool rather than card it. So I've got a separate video that you could watch about hand carding for a woolen, which gives you a nice lofty insulating type of yarn. But the worsted is definitely used for a proper worsted yarn to make a more robust, much more compact, drapey type of yarn. Fabulous for anything that's going to need a bit of strength, anything like a sock yarn, for example, or anything that's going to take a little bit of wear and tear. So let's think about how we actually produce that then. So what we need are fibres longer than 4 inches. Now, I have got here, and this is some of this lovely border Leicester, and this is about, I've measured this, it's about 5 inches. Now, you actually want to measure it in its normal staple state. you don't need to stretch it out to measure it. It's just as it is. And this sort of length I would use on the small hand combs. If I had, on the other hand, something like, oh, let's have a look at this. Oh gosh, look at this, isn't that just gorgeous? I'm very excited, so this is actually Lincoln long wool. And yes, it's a long wool, but this particular one isn't overly long. What's that, about 7 inches or so? But isn't that just beautiful? And The long wools, it's like the Wensleydale Teeswater, just beautiful. They have such, and this does as well, they have such a gorgeous luster about them. And you keep that within the yarn and it just gives a fantastic sheen and fabulous stitch definition to any of your projects as well. So these would actually be prepared, so the longer ones like this, longer staples, I would always prepare those on the English wool combs. I'm not going to demonstrate those to you today because that's a whole other subject, so I'll do that in a separate video for you as well. So looking at the equipment, let's see what I've got over here on my table. Put my lovely wool to one side. The most basic, I suppose, are these little handheld combs, which, as you can see, they've only got one row of tines, as opposed to these, as I showed you, which have 2 rows. The difference being you can load more onto these, you get a better job done, I believe, actually. Yeah, the single row will do a perfectly good job, but I have to say I do love those. They do seem to do a really good job of it. This particular pair here, this little set, this is from Women Woolwork. This actually attaches to the table. Now you need to clamp these down, you absolutely must, it's really vital, again for a bit of security. And it comes with all these little gadgets. Let me show you how we put this together. Another safety point, when you are not using your combs, please always lay them down flat. Don't leave them sticking up like this. Ask me how I know. So you can see here we've got a little hole just here in the end of the handle. And if you pop that through this little slot, and with your little pin, you just attach that down through to lock that in place. Now I haven't got my clamps with me today actually, which is a bit remiss, but just please imagine that that's attached to the table. So your wool would be attached like so, and then you would proceed to comb the wool, starting at the tips and working up. I'm not going to show you that, I'm going to show you the handheld ones today, because I think there's something that the majority of us would actually have start off with. But this is a really nice set, I do like this. They also come, I'll show you this, they also come with a time straightener. So if any of your tines become bent and misplaced, misshapen I should say, you just pop that over and just put it back into position. The key though is to not bend them in the first place, isn't it? But usable just in case that does happen. And then we can just put these all back together. It also comes with a little Dizz, which is a little piece of equipment that we use to pull the wool through to make our robe. Okay, so those back in there. Very neatly. So what I'm going to show you is this. So let's take some of our lovely wool. So you just need to attach your wool a little way up from the head so it doesn't get stuck at the bottom. Now the purpose of using the combs is to keep all of the fibres aligned so that they're all nice and straight, ready for spinning in a short forward draw to make your worsted yarn. So we need everything always facing in the same direction. So we attach the butt, which is the cut end of the fleece, to the teeth, to the tines, with the tips, as you can see here, hanging down the front. The other good thing actually that you can do with combs, or the other thing they're useful for, is even if you are going to be carding your wool, I've actually used them quite a lot on fleeces that have got lots of vegetable matter in, which is just such a nightmare, isn't it, to remove? But it is really great. If you comb the fibres out first, that will remove lots of the vegetable matter, and then you can proceed to discard that into your Rolex for long draw spinning. So again, another use, not just for that. Now, That looks quite nice. I think I've got enough on there to be working with. So you don't want it too low down to get it too tight. I'm also looking at the tips. This is what I was looking at as I was trying to talk to you there. How tight are these tips? Because this particular fleece, it was really quite greasy on the ends. So we'll see how that comes out as well. The other thing that it will do as you're combing these is remove the shorter hairs, and they're going to get stuck behind the teeth so that they're removed from your spinning so that you only keep the longest of the fibres. Okay, now then. Working away from your body, always away from your body, never towards anybody else that might be in the vicinity, obviously. I have to say that. Nothing should feel difficult about this. You don't have to hold on for dear life. You know, you need enough grip just to hold them securely. But just working at these tips. Look at that. Just away from you. Isn't it just amazing how it actually starts to just changes, doesn't it? As soon as you start working with it, it's beautiful stuff. Now, if you find that this is getting a little bit fly away, a little bit static, the other thing you might like to consider, again, it depends on the weather sometimes, and just on how dry your fleece is. But I've actually got here a spray bottle. And in my spray bottle, I've got a mixture of olive oil and water. Now, just a little spritz over this, just to stop that static. The oil within it also just helps us keep the teeth of the combs to just glide through. Right, let's get back to where I was. Okay, what we want to do now is transfer it back onto the first comb. So, this time, downward motion. Again, just starting from those tips. See how much we can get off. Be interesting to see how much short bits, how many nets and oils are actually left behind at the end. If you find it gets too difficult, you can just move it up a little bit just to help release it a fraction. Just like that. So you can see here how much we've actually got left. If I take that off, you can see all those very, very, if I can be closer, can you see these? All those very, very short bits there that we really don't want in our spinning, do we? That really spoil your yarn. One of the things about the worsted yarn is that it's not very forgiving, it doesn't take any prisoners. Everything has to be just perfect. You need it to be dense and smooth. Excuse me. Any imperfections are going to show. Not like when you're spinning a woolen yarn, that any imperfection within that tends to sort of find its place when you come to apply them together. Doesn't happen with worsted. I've got to get it right. Okay. Right, now then, I'm going to do that once more because I can see on the ends there are still, let me kind of show you. You can see some little tiny bits here still stuck in the ends. Let's have a little look, a little bit underneath there as well. So I'm just going to do that again. You can see this time it isn't quite so fly away, is it? Isn't it beautiful? It's one of those things that I could just sit and do all day actually, because I just love to watch how it changes as we work with it. Let's see if I can just give that bit up a little bit. And once more back. Now there, do you notice how I actually pulled that too hard? It was too difficult to pull, and I took it off again because it means I've actually got it too far in, I'm not just doing the tips. So if it feels difficult, it usually means that you're too far into your little beard of wool, okay? Nearly there. It doesn't take long, does it, to transform it? It's just, again, it's one of those things that, you know, you've got to get right and you've got to actually enjoy this process of the preparation. Our spinning definitely isn't all about the spinning. It is about the preparation as well. You've got to love all of it. And I think when you start working with something like this and you realise just how gorgeous it is, why would you not enjoy it anyway? Right, so there you can see we've got a lovely little supply of gorgeously soft wool there. And let's have another look and see what else we've got left on the second comb. And again, quite a bit. Let's see if I bring that up to you again. Look, quite a bit of little tiny bits that would absolutely spoil your spinning. So they're the bits we don't want. Sometimes you just get shorter fibres that you can actually retain and recard those and use them for something else. There's no reason why you can't use that for felting or who knows what else. But generally, that is the bit we don't want in our worsted spinning. Now then, all I'm going to do with this now is just gently pull to remove the fibre. Now, if you watch what you can see here, I'm pulling and letting go, pulling and letting go. And the reason I'm letting go in between is that we don't want to ruffle up those fibres, do we? We want this to remain straight as it was, and to make sure we do everything we can to ensure a really smooth yarn. So that's even part, you know, this part of the process is included in that, because if we ruffle up those fibres at this stage, they're just not going to be smooth. Now I'm hesitating here as I'm talking to you because I can just see that I've got some little bits, little nets coming through there that I don't want. So I'm actually going to break that off there and say I'm done. So I'm finished. I end up with, again, just these short ones. And again, this isn't quite so nappy, but it is definitely the shorter fibres, but still wouldn't want that in my spinning. So look at that, isn't that amazing? So what I've got now, it's a nice little roving that I'm going to just wrap around my hand, take the end, and just bring that back through, poke it up in the middle, and make a gorgeous little nest. And every time, for each one that you make, you need to make sure that you do exactly the same amount of passes so that your tips and your butts always stay aligned, and therefore your little nest will always be in the same, the staples will always be in the same direction in each nest, so that you know that your end that is poking up here, which is the end you're going to start your spinning, they are all in the same direction. Otherwise, as you spin them, if some start from the tip and some start from the butt, you're going to, what's the word, say, just ruffle up these scales on the fibres. So as I said, that's going to make things just stand up. You'll have a smooth section and a bit of a prickly section, which isn't a good look in a worsted yarn, is it? So just, again, just think about the amount of times to do everything the same that you need to do, always making sure that you end in the same direction, so that when you start from here, you're always working in the same direction. There we go. Isn't that just beautiful? So, you know, you would just sit and make as many of those as you could sit and spin comfortably in a session. There we go. Easy peasy. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Let me know. And let me know how you get on with it. And if you need any help with anything, any advice, I want to show you what you've done, you know where I am. Okay. Thanks for that. See you soon. Bye for now. Bye-bye.